The drama unfolds as our female lead, An Chu-sha, a part-time health assistant, is engrossed in a phone conversation with her boss, trying to locate a customer. Simultaneously, the customer contacts her, informing her that he has sent someone to retrieve her. Shortly after, a housekeeper approaches Chu-sha, and she seizes the opportunity to ask about her employer, Mr. Han. As soon as he hears the name, the housekeeper escorts her inside the residence. He leads her to a young man named Han Ki-lu, suggesting she begin her treatment. Sha then proceeds to unpack her medical equipment, preparing to approach Ki-lu. To her surprise, as she nears him, Ki-lu abruptly runs away from her. Meanwhile, the housekeeper converses with Ki-lu's mother, Mrs. Han, expressing optimism that this time the young master will make a complete recovery. Just then, a psychologist, Miss An, arrives and begins to ask questions about Ki-lu. Hearing this, both the housekeeper and Miss Han come to the realization that there has been a mix-up regarding the doctors, owing to the similar initials of Sha and Miss An. After this, both of them discover that Sha is not a real psychologist and rush to Ki-lu's room to stop any mishap. Meanwhile, as Ki-lu is running away from Sha, she falls on top of him, kissing him on the lips. Miss Han and the housekeeper also enter the room and are surprised to see the two in such an awkward position. After clearing the confusion, Sha receives a call from her boss. He angrily fires her for failing to show up at her first appointment. In the midst of the conversation, Mrs. Han and Miss An discuss how to help Ki-lu overcome his condition. It's revealed that Ki-lu has suffered from an allergy to female touch since a traumatic childhood incident. Even his mother has been unable to express affection for him properly. However, Miss An observes that Ki-lu exhibits no allergic reaction after his contact with Sha, including their unexpected kiss. She then suggests that they should enlist Sha to help improve his condition. Next, Sha apologizes to Ki-lu and prepares to leave. However, Mrs. Han intervenes and proposes a contract. Learning about Sha's mother's illness and her struggle to cover medical expenses through multiple part-time jobs, Mrs. Han extends an offer for Sha to spend time with Ki-lu and help him overcome his allergy to female touches. Initially hesitant, she refuses the offer. But when Mrs. Han offers to cover all of her mother's medical expenses, provide her with a daily pay, and facilitate her administration to Ki-lu's college for further education, she decides to sign the contract. Following this, Ki-lu is informed about the contract, and both he and Sha receive smartbands from his mother. These devices measure the distance between them and record the time they spend together during the day. The next day, Sha accompanies Ki-lu to college and sits behind him in class. There, she encounters Chen, a fellow male student who had previously offered her a part-time job at his bakery. They strike up a friendly conversation, during which Chen attempts to warn Sha about Ki-lu's behavior and the rumors circulating about him in college. Despite his words of caution, Sha remains steadfast in her support for Ki-lu, given her understanding of his condition. Unbeknownst to them, Ki-lu overhears their conversation and departs with a satisfied smile. Later that night, as Ki-lu had avoided her throughout the day, Sha concludes that he must be a heartless person and sketches her feelings in her diary. She then sneaks into his room and attempts to fulfill their physical time. Finding Ki-lu asleep, she places their smartbands closer together. When her watch beeps to signal the completion of their time, she exits the room. However, Ki-lu, who was awake, playfully remarks on her childish behavior after she departs. The following morning, the two prepare for college, and when Sha approaches Ki-lu, he says that he will give her the smartband to fulfill the time requirement, but only if she can improve her mood. Eager to obtain the smartband and stop trailing him, Sha begins reading the comprehensive file about Ki-lu provided by the housekeeper. Unfortunately, when she opens the file, another female student named Xin-wei confronts her. She scolds Sha for always being close to Ki-lu and tosses the file aside. It's revealed that Xin-wei actually has a crush on him. Later in the classroom, Sha musters up the courage to ask Ki-lu about his relationship with Xin-wei. The latter, appearing to be somewhat uncomfortable, advises her to keep her voice down. He then provides her with his smartband, allowing Sha to fulfill her required time as mentioned by his mother. He also requests that she fetch a piece of cake from the nearby bakery. During the break, Sha visits Chen's bakery and purchases the cake as requested. Meanwhile, Ki-lu confronts Xin-wei and candidly expresses his disinterest in her while urging her not to spread false rumors about their relationship. Later, when Sha returns to the college with Chen, Ki-lu observes them together, and it appears that he's displeased with their friendliness. At night, Ki-lu has a nightmare. He sees the woman kidnapping and torturing him during his childhood. On the other hand, Sha begins to realize that Ki-lu is not a cold-hearted demon she initially assumed, and starts sketching a new character for him. The following day, as Ki-lu has temporarily entrusted his smartband to Sha, she refrains from shadowing him and spends more time with Chen. Ki-lu, uncomfortable with this, approaches the two and asks her to return the smartband. When she declines, he threatens to have her fired. Hearing this, Chen offers her a full-time position at his bakery, but due to the benefits offered by Mrs. Han's contract, Shaw can't afford to quit her current job. She promptly returns the smartband to Ki-Lu and begins following him closely to meet their physical proximity requirements. Chen then asks what's going on, but she leaves, promising to explain it to him someday. Back at Ki-Lu's residence, he calls Shaw and provides her with a stack of books, instructing her to study overnight for the upcoming exam. He wants her to pass the exam in order to remain in the class and continue to be close to him. It has become evident that Ki-Lu is developing feelings for Shaw and is determined to help her improve her grades. The following morning, after a sleepless night of studying, Shaw is still feeling sleepy and accidentally collides with Ki-Lu on her way to college. Shinwei witnesses this and is clearly jealous. Later, when Shaw is alone, she takes the opportunity to approach her, luring her into the piano room and locking her inside. With the exam about to begin, Shaw is conspicuously absent, causing Ki-Lu to frantically search the college premises for her. He even seeks assistance from Chen. The latter suspects Shinwei's involvement, so he questions her about Shaw's whereabouts. Initially, the bitch denies any wrongdoing, but when Chen persists, she finally confesses to locking Shaw in the piano room. Upon learning this, Ki-Lu and Chen rush to the piano room, unlock the door, and discover Shaw unconscious. Disregarding their own exam, Ki-Lu carries her while Chen follows him to the medical room. After a while, Shaw regains consciousness and immediately frets about missing the exam. Chen informs her that the exam is ended and they have all missed it. Right then, Shinwei arrives and apologizes to Shaw for her actions. Furious, our heroine scolds her, but Shinwei attempts to justify herself, claiming that she did it out of love for Ki-Lu. She even touches him, but Shaw quickly swats her away. Seeing the two of them close again, Shinwei leaves the medical room sad, with Chen following her. After they depart, Shaw applies ointment to the allergic reaction Ki-Lu got from Shinwei's touch. At home, Mrs. Han treats Shaw like her own daughter, believing that she can help her son regain a normal life. Shaw appreciates the care, especially since she's away from her ailing mother. The next day, their homeroom teacher reprimands the three for missing the exam and refuses to believe Shaw's explanation of being locked in the piano room. Fortunately, Shinwei steps in and admits her wrongdoing, suggesting that the teacher verify the incident with the school guard. The teacher then decides to grant them 1 week to prepare for a makeup exam, with their grades determined based on the results. Following this, Shaw asks Ki-Lu for his notes to help her study for the exam. In response, he provides her with the entire set of exam questions and advises her to memorize them thoroughly. Shaw asks if she can share the questions with Chen, and Ki-Lu responds that she can do as she pleases. Meanwhile, Shinwei visits Chen's bakery and asks about his exam preparation. She then urges him to do better than Shaw in the exam, and also threatens that if he doesn't, she will never talk to him again. The scene then shifts to the library where Shaw is studying alone. At the same time, Ki-Lu approaches her and starts teaching her some problems, while standing very close to her. Rather than focusing on the solution, Shaw keeps looking at him. Later, Chen arrives there, and Shaw rushes to provide him with the question paper that Ki-Lu prepared for the exam. On the other hand, Mr. Han returns home and gets upset to learn that Shaw is staying in their home and getting close to his son. This is because he's already arranged Ki-Lu's marriage to the daughter of one of his business partners. At college, Shaw talks to Chen and asks him different ways to touch Ki-Lu without irritating him. Hearing this, the latter realizes that Shaw has a crush on Ki-Lu. He then suggests she try to touch him while he's asleep. While the two are talking, Ki-Lu enters the cafeteria and becomes sad after noticing them together. Later at night, following Chen's suggestion, Shaw comes closer to Ki-Lu and tries to touch him. But to her dismay, he notices her intentions and asks her to go away. Shaw then asks him why he behaved so rudely with her. She also apologizes to him for admitting to Chen that she has a crush on him. While doing this, she holds Ki-Lu's hand, but our boy doesn't react to it and returns to his room. In the next scene, Shaw, Ki-Lu, and Chen take their makeup exams, and surprisingly, Shaw performs exceptionally well, even outscoring her friends. Impressed by her improved grades, Mrs. Han gifts Shaw a tablet, with a wallpaper featuring a picture of her and Ki-Lu together. Along with the gift, Mrs. Han assigns Shaw her next task: spend 1 minute in physical contact with Ki-Lu. The following day, in an attempt to fulfill the assigned task, Shaw tries to get closer to Ki-Lu. However, he notices her efforts and asks that she maintain some distance. Later in class, Shaw observes Ki-Lu receiving an urgent phone call and follows him outside. During the call, Ki-Lu discusses searching for a girl and asks the person on the other end to keep it a secret from his parents. Just then, Shaw arrives there and suggests they play a game to lighten the mood. While playing, they touch hands and Ki-Lu allows it to happen, fulfilling Shaw's task of physical contact and bringing a smile to her face. Meanwhile, while passing Shaw's desk, Chen accidentally knocks over her tablet, which displays the picture of her and Ki-Lu. The entire class sees the photo and assumes that the two are dating, leading to a rapid spread of rumors throughout the college. Shaw pays little attention to the gossip, but Ki-Lu is affected by it and publicly insults her in front of the whole classroom. He makes it clear that he would never date someone like Shaw. Later, Chen apologizes to Shaw for unintentionally exposing her private life and promises to help her get closer to Ki-Lu. Here, he also confesses his feelings for Xin-Wei, but admits that he lacks the courage to tell her. Later, Xin-Wei brings coffee for Ki-Lu, trying to get closer to him. But before she can touch him, Shaw intervenes and accidentally spills hot coffee on her own hand. Ki-Lu notices this and hurriedly takes Shaw to the classroom, where he applies ointment on her burned hand. In the following scene, while Ki-Lu and Shaw are fulfilling their allocated physical time at home, Mrs. Han observes them together and smiles. She praises Shaw for her efforts and increases their physical contact time to 10 minutes. Back at school, preparations for the Cinderella play begin, and Shaw expresses her desire to participate. She asks Ki-Lu to be her partner, but he shows no interest. However, Ki-Lu discusses the lead roles in the play with Chen and learns that he and Xin-Wei will be performing them. In response, Ki-Lu decides to help Shaw complete her painting duties to fulfill their physical contact requirement. On the other hand, when Xin-Wei discovers that Shaw and Ki-Lu are spending time together, she rushes into the room to attempt to separate them. Unfortunately, she slips and injures her ankle, forcing her to withdraw from the play. As a result, Shaw is selected to play Cinderella. After the casting decision, Chen begins teaching her the dance moves, but Ki-Lu interrupts them and insists that Shaw follow him home as it is getting late. At home, Shaw continues practicing the Cinderella dance, worried about the limited time to prepare. Ki-Lu notices her dedication and joins in to help her practice. Mrs. Han secretly observes them dancing and takes pictures. The scene then shifts to the Cinderella play, where Xin-Wei asks one of her friends to sabotage Chen's costume so that he cannot accompany Shaw on stage for the dance. Following her orders, her friend carries out the plan, and during the play, Shaw is left alone on stage waiting for Chen. As time passes and Chen doesn't appear, the audience starts ridiculing Shaw. However, Ki-Lu, who is in the audience, comes to her rescue and joins her on stage to dance. Their dance captivates the audience, who applauds their wonderful performance. Afterwards, when Xin-Wei learns about what happened, she confronts Ki-Lu for ignoring her. However, the latter refuses to let her touch him and walks away, leaving Xin-Wei wondering why Ki-Lu is comfortable with Shaw's touch, but keeps his distance from her. Right then, Chen arrives and comforts Xin-Wei, making her understand that Ki-Lu might have some valid reason for doing so. Later, Chen gives Shaw's personal diary to Ki-Lu and asks him to return it to her. However, instead of giving it back to her immediately, Ki-Lu starts reading it and discovers Shaw's wish to go camping. He then decides to fulfill her wish and begins preparing for a camping trip. Meanwhile, Xin-Wei visits Chen's bakery and discusses her unrequited love for Ki-Lu. At this moment, Chen comforts her and gathers the courage to confess his love for her. Surprisingly, she doesn't reject him and asks for some time to think about her response. The following day, when Shaw visits Chen at the bakery, she is thrilled to learn that he has finally confessed his love for Xin-Wei. Unbeknownst to them, Ki-Lu is watching them from outside and becomes jealous of seeing them together. Annoyed, he enters the bakery and tells Shaw that if she wants her personal diary back, she'll need to bake a cupcake for him. In a hurried attempt, Shaw prepares a cupcake, and during this interaction, a romantic moment unfolds between the two. In the following scene, Ki-Lu and Shaw embark on their camping trip in a camper van. Unfortunately, during their journey, Shaw starts feeling unwell and they're forced to spend the night in a hotel. To their dismay, there's only one room available, and they have to share it. With just one bed in the room, Ki-Lu demands to sleep on it, while Shaw takes the couch. However, she finds the couch uncomfortable and wakes up during the night. Ki-Lu notices her discomfort and invites her to share the bed. Shaw accepts the offer, and unknowingly, she hugs Ki-Lu and falls asleep beside him. Our hero is aware of this, but doesn't ask her to move away. Surprisingly, because of Shaw's presence, Ki-Lu doesn't experience any nightmares that night. Instead, he dreams of the little girl who helped him escape from his childhood kidnapping. In the morning, Shaw wakes up and realizes that she hugged Ki-Lu all night. She feels embarrassed and rushes to the bathroom. Meanwhile, Ki-Lu receives a message from his assistant, informing him that he hasn't been able to find the girl he is searching for. Despite this setback, Ki-Lu remains determined and urges him to keep searching. Later, Ki-Lu and Shaw leave the hotel and head to a nearby beach to enjoy their day. While taking pictures, they spot Xin-Wei walking towards the sea. Shaw fears that Xin-Wei will be attempting to kill herself and rushes to stop her. As she pulls Xin-Wei back to the shore, the latter falls into the water and gets wet. Feeling sorry, our heroine offers her clothes to change into, but Xin-Wei declines. So instead, she secretly texts Chen to bring Xin-Wei's clothes. Before long, Chen arrives with Xin-Wei's dress and camping gear. Both couples then set up their tents beside each other and enjoy quality time together. Chen gets a chance to spend time alone with Xin-Wei, while Ki-Lu and Shaw grow closer. Later, all of them visit an amusement park and play various games. While sharing coffee, Shinwei accidentally touches Kilu's hand, but this time he doesn't react with any allergic reactions. Kilu then realizes that being around Shaw has helped his condition. The next day as they return home, Kilu confides in Shinwei about his condition, explaining why he ignored her earlier. He also informs her that he's planning to go on a long trip soon and asks her to take care of Shaw in his absence. Surprisingly, Shinwei agrees and they shake hands, signifying a newfound understanding between them. On their way back home, Kilu tells Shaw about his plans to search for someone very special to him after his upcoming birthday celebration. He assures her that he won't disrupt her education and asks her to take care in his absence. Meanwhile, Chen is worried that Shinwei and Kilu might rekindle their relationship after sorting things out. However, to his surprise, Shinwei pulls him closer and kisses him on the cheek, confessing her feelings for him. Upon arriving home, Kilu and Shaw are greeted by an emotional Mrs. Han, who is overjoyed to see her son's recovery. She thanks Shaw for her help and considers her a lucky star for their family. After this, they begin preparations for Kilu's upcoming birthday party, where Kilu plans to propose to Shaw. Unaware of this proposal, Shaw is also excited about the party and prepares a delicious cake for him. Unfortunately, Mr. Han does not allow Shaw to attend the birthday party and sends her home. He instead announces that his business partner's daughter, Sean Miyuki, will be Kilu's fiancée. However, our boy doesn't agree to this and walks out of his own birthday party in search of Shaw. With the help of his mother and Chen, Kilu eventually locates Shaw's house. There, he meets her mother and introduces himself as her employer's son. Shaw's mother is very happy to see him, and she happily invites him inside. She suggests they join him for lunch and asks Shaw to buy some food. Kilu accompanies her, and on their way back, he notices an old building that triggers his memories of being kidnapped as a child. He enters the building and becomes frightened, with Shaw coming to his aid. Looking at Shaw, Kilu realizes that she's the same girl who saved him during his childhood. Upon returning home, they inquire further about the kidnapping incident. Shaw's mother reveals that the kidnapper was actually one of her co-workers who had a breakdown due to financial troubles. The woman blamed the Han Group of Industries for her situation when they faced a major loss and couldn't pay their employees' salaries on time. This led to her husband divorcing her and taking custody of their child. Shaw's mother explains that the woman kidnapped Kilu as an act of revenge against the Han family. Eventually, the woman was sent to a mental hospital and Kilu was rescued thanks to Shaw. The mother also hints that the real culprit behind the Han Group's downfall 14 years ago is Mr. Han's business partner, Mr. Shang. After learning about all this, Kilu begins searching for evidence to present to his father. He wants to make him realize that his partner is an evil person. With the help of Shaw and her mother, Kilu successfully finds one of the senior ex-workers of Han Industries and asks about the financial condition of their family during that time. The man reveals that Mr. Shang pocketed all the employees' salaries, causing a great loss to the business. In the next scene, Kilu presents the damning evidence to his father, making him realize the gravity of his engagement to Miyuki. Mr. Han understands that this engagement would not only harm his son's life, but also jeopardize their family and business. Consequently, he calls off the engagement and agrees to accept Kilu's relationship with Shaw. Mrs. Han is overjoyed by this turn of events and embraces Shaw, officially declaring her as her daughter-in-law. The drama concludes with a heartwarming and romantic proposal from Kilu to Shaw, sealing their love with a passionate kiss, marking a happy and heartfelt ending to their story.